On the night of the 15th of July, 2016, a 26-year-old woman was strangled to death while she slept in her family's modest home in Multan, Pakistan. The perpetrator was no stranger. It was her own brother. He would later confess to the crime on national television, announcing that he had done so to restore his family's honor. In the chaotic weeks that followed, millions of people across Pakistan and around the globe were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The woman who had just been murdered was not merely a citizen. She was arguably the most talked about, debated, and relentlessly threatened figure in the entire country. Her name was Qandeel Baloch. Even today, the story of how she lived, why she was targeted, and what happened to those responsible raises three questions that the legal system never fully resolved. Why did public fury center so heavily on her? Who truly bears responsibility for the climate that enabled her murder? And did justice, in any meaningful sense of the word, ever actually prevail? To understand the speed of her transformation, it is necessary to examine the life she lived before changing her identity. Born Fawzia Azim around 1990, she grew up in Shah Sadar Din, a small, rigidly conservative village in southern Punjab. Her family struggled financially, supported by her father's grueling work as a laborer. Within this household, expectations for daughters followed an ancient, rigid script: marriage, deference, and silence. Married off at a young age, some reports suggest she was only 17. She had not chosen the union. It quickly became unhappy and, by her own later accounts, deeply abusive. One son came from the union before it fractured entirely. Divorce in rural Pakistani communities carries an enormous social stigma that falls almost exclusively on the woman. Facing a bleak future, Fawzia returned to her family with her child, but she refused to let her story end in Shah Sadar Din. Though the exact timeline remains difficult to reconstruct, she eventually made her way to the bustling metropolis of Karachi to build a life from scratch on her own. She worked briefly as a domestic assistant, spent time in Lahore, and tried repeatedly to break into the modeling industry. Facing failure after failure, everything shifted in 2013 with a single audition. When she stepped in front of the cameras for Pakistan Idol, her tape went viral not for her vocal talent but for her irrepressible energy. She spoke directly and unselfconsciously to the camera, laughed when the judges dismissed her, and radiated a raw, unguarded confidence that television audiences had rarely seen from a young woman. The clip exploded across the internet. Much of the initial attention was cruel, filled with mocking memes and dismissive commentary from corners of the internet that treated her ambition as an embarrassment. Fawzia Azim, however, recognized something her detractors missed. She understood that attention, regardless of its flavor, was a powerful resource. Armed with this realization, she adopted a bold new moniker, Qandeel Baloch, and launched a public Facebook page. What followed over the next 3 years completely disrupted Pakistan's media landscape. Where female public figures were expected to occupy tightly defined behavioral boundaries, Qandeel shattered them. From posting videos of herself dancing to offering unfiltered commentary on gender politics, she constantly pushed the envelope. She wore clothes that conservative critics deemed immodest, mocked powerful figures, and celebrated herself loudly without a shred of apology. Opinions were fiercely polarized. She was condemned as shameless by traditionalists and celebrated as a feminist icon by progressive advocates. By 2016, her social media reach across platforms easily crossed the 1 million mark, cementing her status as Pakistan's first true self-made social media star, who built an audience entirely on her own terms. With that immense fame came a dark undercurrent of frequent, graphic death threats. This tension finally cracked open in June of 2016 during a fateful meeting with Mufti Muhammad Abdul Qawi, As a prominent cleric and member of the official moon sighting Rueti Hilal Committee, Qawi was a man of immense religious and institutional standing. According to Qandeel, the meeting took place in a hotel room during Ramadan to discuss spiritual matters. The public aftermath of that encounter was immediate and explosive. Qandeel uploaded photos and video clips showing the two interacting informally, even playfully donning his traditional cap on her head while he smiled comfortably beside her. Within days, the backlash had shaken the country's religious establishment, costing Mufti Qawi his official committee seat. He vehemently denied any wrongdoing, claimed he was ambushed, and later gave a chilling interview where he pointedly declined to condemn anyone who might violently punish her. Rather than retreating into hiding, Qandeel doubled down in press interviews, insisting that men in positions of high religious authority were not immune to public scrutiny. Within weeks of those photographs hitting the internet, she was gone. On that hot July evening, Qandeel was resting at her parents' home in Multan, where her brother, Wasim Azim, had also just arrived. Reports indicate she had taken sleeping medication before retiring. To her room, Wasim entered the room while she slept and strangled her with his bare hands before fleeing into the night. Though the family initially attempted to report the death as a sudden drug overdose, forensic investigators quickly exposed the physical signs of homicide. Local authorities tracked him down and made an arrest before the week was out. He confessed instantly to the cameras, explicitly declaring that her online behavior had brought intolerable shame upon the family name. Standing before reporters at just 25 years old, he stated without a hint of remorse that he would do it all over again. What followed in court exposed deep, systemic fractures within the country's criminal justice framework. Under Pakistani law at the time, an Islamic legal provision allowed a victim's immediate family to formally pardon a killer. In domestic honor killings, this created a horrific loophole. The head of the household could simply forgive a son for murdering a daughter, forcing the state to drop the case. The family was both victim and defense. As the father of both the victim and the perpetrator, Muhammad Azim quickly stepped forward to grant his son legal forgiveness. Estimates show that roughly 1,000 honor killings occur in Pakistan every single year, with the vast majority of perpetrators walking free through the very same provision. However, the sheer scale of public outrage surrounding Qandeel's death made a quiet dismissal politically impossible. Activists, journalists, and international human rights organizations launched sustained protests, demanding systemic reform. 3 months after her murder, Pakistan's parliament passed the historic anti-honor killing law, stripping families of the power to automatically pardon killers in honor-related homicides and allowing the state to prosecute independently. There is a tragic irony in this legacy. A woman who was relentlessly demonized for defying societal expectations had, in her death, legally forced open a door of protection for thousands of vulnerable women. Despite the televised confession, the actual judicial process ground onward for more than 3 years. A court in Shahpur finally convicted Wasim Azim of murder in December of 2019, sentencing him to life imprisonment. His co-accused, tried in the same proceedings, was acquitted for lack of evidence. While human rights advocates welcomed the conviction as a milestone victory, critics noted that a life sentence in Pakistan often includes avenues for early release. Furthermore, deep questions remained regarding whether the cultural machinery that drove Wasim to violence had been disrupted at all. Many observers argue that the true scope of accountability was never fully explored by the state. The man who physically ended her life sits behind bars, but the societal actors who set the stage remained unexamined. Mufti Qawi, whose public condemnation fanned the flames of outrage. Faced no criminal charges, online accounts that actively circulated her home address and called for her execution were never tracked down or prosecuted. The state focused entirely on the individual who physically carried out the killing, leaving the broader religious, digital, and patriarchal networks that enabled the crime largely untouched. A clean narrative would suggest that a tragedy occurred, a law was changed, and justice won. Yet the reality on the ground remains stubbornly unchanged. Annual statistics for honor-related violence in Pakistan have not dropped significantly since 2016. Legislation exists on paper, but changing social structures and deeply ingrained biases takes generations. Qandeel Baloch was undeniably brilliant, provocative, and acutely aware of the digital landscape she manipulated. She understood the immense risks of exposing institutional hypocrisy, and she chose to hit upload anyway. She spent her final months navigating a world that loudly screamed she did not belong, only to be silenced by someone under her own roof. Wasim Azim remains behind bars, but the cultural forces that motivated him remain intact. His sister, born Fuzia Azim, was stolen at 26. She left behind a young son to grow up in a society where his mother's memory is forever split between radical courage and the violence it attracted. Whether true justice can ever be achieved is an open question, one that a single courtroom verdict could never completely answer.